Welcome back to Belmont Bunch for another episode of the channel.
Our 28th episode.
Our 28th episode?
Our 28th. Well,
it's the Michael Dow Cole mark, so we're all downhill from here. All right, let's talk about some hockey. Boston, overtime loss. It cost us Casey Cizikas' nutsack, so that's a problem. Let's talk about the actual goal. Scott Mayfield put us up 1-0 early on a wonderful play from Barzal, going all the way around the net, throwing it through the slot where Mayfield has it and just throws it on net. Good screen in front by Lee, and it's 1-0. Rask probably didn't really see it. So, good start. All the chances, we're getting fantastic chances. Beauvillier gets a breakaway chance, doesn't really get a great shot off, and it gets stopped. And all of the fans in the arena are yelling "Took" because this game was in Boston. Oh wait, no, it was at the Barclays Center. But Boston fans travel well. So 1-0 after one. We would give up a goal midway through the second that there was some contact with Varlamov, but it kind of looks incidental. Weird bounce, DeBrusk scores. This would be somewhat of a theme this week, but Varlamov having trouble staying on his feet. We will talk about that more. But yes, 1-1 at this point. Boston would take the lead in the third on another kind of weird play where Varlamov kind of, it looks like, to me, it looks like he might have lost his post. Maybe he got screened a little bit, but shot from Moore never really leaves the ice, but it goes through an Islander defender and a Boston player's legs. And Varlamov just doesn't look like he ever tracked it well, because honestly, if he had known where his post was and he's just got the pads out, then it would have been an easy save. So it's kind of a weird play there. But so it's 2-1 at this point. Great goal from Barzal. Great pass from Bailey. Good to see him finally getting something going. This week was important for him. He had a few points. We need to see him do things because our top six right now is kind of pathetic. The Detroit game would help us exercise some of the demons, the scoring demons. But yeah, so 2-2. Barzal tip in through Rask's legs on a nice pass from Bailey. And you feel like they deserve a point, and they get the point. And early in OT, Nelson commits a penalty. I still have not seen the play, so I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to posit an opinion here, but I will just say, what a shocker. We're not getting any power plays. And just, it feels like everything that could go wrong is going wrong.
I haven't seen the play either, and it was bullshit.
Yeah.
Refs are wrong.
So
always.
So Bergeron scores on kind of just a one-on-one with Varlamov. They out of position on the penalty kill, kind of sprawling around trying to save themselves. Cizikas not on the ice because he stopped a shot fully with his ball sack. So, you know, tough things going on there. So they lose, but you feel really good about the point. You do, I mean, you feel good about the point, but obviously everybody was extremely frustrated because if the Isles had any form of attack, I mean, the shots were good, but the Isles do not have that finishing touch right now against non-AHL teams. That is, I mean, I'm hammering it home now, but we're also going to talk about it closer to the trade deadline and probably right before the All-Star break. But the Isles, as they're currently constituted, not scoring enough. And I know come playoff time, it only gets tighter. It only gets harder to score come playoff time. So if we're not going to be able to score more than two goals a game, I mean, Boston, it makes sense. Boston has a pretty good defense and a good goalie. The Rangers' defense is not good at all. Not to say they're not a decent team, because they can score pretty well. They're I think top half of the league in scoring. But really worrying, I don't feel like we match up well with the Rangers because they're running gun and we're tight checking, and I'm already kind of bleeding over into this game, but we're kind of done with the Boston game anyway. We do not play run and gun teams very well apparently right now, because we saw against Pittsburgh in the playoffs last year, we did fine against a run and gun playoff team. This year, we're struggling against non-playoff teams, as we would see in the city the other day. Eberle gets us going 18 seconds in. I am ecstatic. I feel like, you know, we've kind of had the Rangers number, especially at MSG over the last like 5 years, which is kind of crazy. So I'm kind of starting to feel like, okay, we're coming off a really good performance where we didn't get the result we wanted, but, you come right out, you score against a team that doesn't defend very well. Now you can maybe, you don't sit back, but maybe you can look to settle the game down, make the Rangers play your game. We would not do that, because then we would have 2 fights inside of like 3 minutes of real time, but 0 seconds of game time, which triggered a rule that I didn't know was there, which is if you fight twice before a puck is dropped, the second fight, you get kicked out of the game. So Matt Martin and Brendan Smith both get kicked out of the game early on. And with Cizikas out of the lineup, and Clutterbuck obviously still out for a while, our whole fourth line that we started the year with is out of the lineup. Ross Johnston had a fight with Michael Haley that went pretty well for Ross. Just before that was the preceding fight. Michael Haley, former Islander that he beat up. Haley's been around for a while, and he played for the Isles minor league team for a while too. And he's just like a tough dude. But he picked a really tough fighter.
Picked my favorite player.
Yeah.
Don't mess across the boss.
So that at this point I'm loving it, because it feels like we've won a fight and we're up 1-0 2 minutes into the game, and it feels like that second fight with Martin, regardless of how it went, it was kind of a 50-50 fight. The momentum was gone because we lost our fourth line, and we're not like most teams. Our fourth line is kind of our second line, like in the amount that we utilize them. So that was a big deal, and I think you could see that as the turning point, that the game turned into a run and gun style, and that's not at all our style. And that's where the Rangers were able to take advantage. And the first goal from Fost is a little bit questionable, because it looks like he slashes Leddy's stick before he ends up scoring the goal. We're just not getting any calls right. I don't know what else to say. We're like, the numbers back it up, so it's not like me falling back on, oh, it's the ref's fault. Because it's not the ref's fault that we lost 6-2. But it's just frustrating. It's just a thing on top of them kind of still struggling right now. I mean, this was an interesting week. You see a great performance with a loss, an awful performance with a loss, and a very, very good performance that you don't even feel that much about, because Detroit is just that pathetic. Fost gets the first goal. Kreider gets the second on what seems like a borderline deflection. It could have been a high stick, might not have been. Like we've been saying, at this point, just no calls are going our way. So we're really up against it to it's really tough for you to win a game when, 1, you're not playing great, 2, you're not getting any calls, and 3, it feels like every bounce that could go wrong is going wrong. And in this game, yes, that's what happened. The third goal from Adam Fox is a terrible goal to give up by Varlamov. This is what really, because, 2-2, we've not been scoring, it kind of felt like the game was over at 3-1, which is not good. It shows how anemic our offense is. And we talked about it when we did the offensive lines video. I don't think this team, the Islanders, right now can win when you have, no offense, Ross Johnston, Leo Komarov, Michael Dowd-Cole, and Tom Kuhnhackl all in the lineup. None of these players is going to end the year with more than 6 or 7 goals. You can't operate an offense with 4 pieces of dead weight offensively. We will talk about this more as we get to the trade deadline. Positives to take out of this game, because at this point, I was watching, but I was kind of just a zombie, and also I went to bed early. I did watch the end of the game though, so I went to bed after the game. Varlamov gives up a really bad goal to Fox that basically puts the game away. The fifth goal, Varlamov falls in his crease as Jacob Trouba is loading up. And it was just insult to injury. He couldn't even stand upright at this point, Varlamov. It's hard to just say it's not because it wasn't all his fault. But it was a really rough game for Varlamov. So he gets pulled there. Greiss comes in, Grice doesn't really have to do anything because the game's over at this point. We get a power play goal from Nelson. That was, I mean, Eberle did most of the work, and Nelson just slammed it into the net. Very angrily, I might add, because, I mean, they should be angry. After the game, Trotz talked about, I'm not going to sleep well after this. We laid an egg. You know, we come off a really good performance where we don't get rewarded, and then we just don't show up at all after. You know, we show up for 2 minutes. We show up for 2 fights and 1 goal, and then gave up. Yeah, and the shots were pretty even. We had some bit of a push in the mid to late second after it was already like 3 or 4-1. It's kind of over already. And then in the third, I didn't see any push from us. That's a little bit alarming. You get a goal, but it was a power play goal too, and it was really late and it didn't matter at all. So Eberle, Eberle was the highlight of the game. He gets 2 points. He really, really needs to get going. Yeah, they played awful, and and also to give credit, the Rangers played their game. They played fast. They were throwing pucks on net whenever they could, and they were pretty impressive. They're not a bad team, you know. They're like close to NHL 500, but they're a team that's got some excitement because of the way that they can score and because they've got a lot of young guys. So like we said, I will pat myself on the back. Our preseason prediction is not far off. They are closer to the bottom of the division than they are to like a playoff spot. But they're an exciting team to watch, and Ranger fans are excited because they're going in the correct direction as a franchise.
Do you think Varlamov's starting to get tired? You know, maybe
a little bit.
Utilized a lot.
Maybe a little bit. He also, I mean, at the beginning of the year when he was struggling a little bit, I do see like a weird tendency for him to occasionally just be really klutzy. Like he fell down on the 5th goal by the Rangers, and the 3rd goal he just didn't even cover the post, and it was just like, where are you? Like it feels like when he doesn't have it, he is like bad. It's noticeable. Some goalies, even when they're struggling a little bit, like they'll pull off a couple good saves here and there, and you're like, he's engaged. It's just not everything's going his way. Like Varlamov just looks lost sometimes. Like not for extended periods of time.
No, I know.
But it'll just be that one odd game in a long stretch. Like he's played like 8 of the last 9 or something, and it's just like that one game just sticks out so obviously where you're just like, oh, we gave up 2, 1, 2, 2, 6.
Yeah.
Which happens, but the way that it happened was a little bit alarming. But he would get the night off against Detroit. This would lead us to the exorcism at Nassau Coliseum. Detroit, a lot of that shot differential comes from the game being over after... I mean, the game was over after 1, to be honest. But the game was like completely over after 2 when it was 6-1. But let's do a quick run through of the goals. There's a lot, obviously, scoring-wise to go through in this game, but I'm just going to highlight some guys that got off the schneid and really, really, really needed to show some offense. Brock Nelson has just been rolling, so that's really good to see him continue to play really well. Eberle, another 2-point game, 4 points in 2 games. Very, very key piece of this team if we do not acquire some sort of offense in a trade or calling up Bellows. Eberle is going to be a gigantic part of us having to turn our offense around. Beauvillier, very important for him to get going again. He had been quiet for the last couple weeks. So that's important, seeing him get a deflection goal. Noah Dobson finally got his first NHL goal. It was not a beauty. He just threw it towards the net, and Alex Biega of Detroit went to try to slap the puck down and threw it into his own net. Detroit, I am so sorry, but I watched this happen in 2008 with the Islanders tanking for Tavares, and yeah, it's not pretty, but Alex Lafreniere, right? Am I right? First overall pick. You guys better hope you get the first overall pick. It is an absolute embarrassment. I mean, I'm watching the game with my parents, and my mom's like, Detroit's so slow. And I'm like, oh, no, you know, don't, like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I'm watching the game, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going at like pee-wee speed. Like they can't connect a pass. Like they can't skate up the ice. They can't chew bubblegum and walk at the same time, seemingly. They just seem to have no game plan. Guys are breaking their sticks over the goal after making mistakes. they just look like a team that does not want to be on the ice. So that's interesting situation developing in Detroit.
How much of that do you think is coaching?
It's all that they knew they were not going to be good this year, and they're tanking. They didn't attempt to get any better in the offseason because they want the first overall pick.
But it's like one pick is not going to...
Yeah, well, it's tough. You say that if you get a cornerstone player, and this year's draft is expected to have a cornerstone type player, Alexis Lafreniere, you have to remember that sometimes guys get a lot of hype for being the first overall pick, because obviously there can only be one first overall player. But you look at a couple years ago, Nico Hischier and Nolan Patrick. They were the first overall pick. They were the first 2 picks of the draft. Hischier went first to the Devils. Patrick went second to the Flyers. And they had a ton of hype too. And Hischier's starting to realize that. But Nolan Patrick was like the consensus number 1 for over a year. Last minute, Hischier gets picked number 1. But like, he's been invisible, and he's been hurt this year. So he's been physically invisible from the ice because he hasn't been on the ice. There has to be hype, because that's how media thrives, and hockey media needs somebody to coalesce around and be like, oh, here is our champion, the first overall pick. And sometimes they do that and they truly believe that the guy is that special. Sometimes they do it just because this is the guy for this year. Doesn't mean he's going to be great, but Lafreniere, expectations are he'll be fantastic. Detroit better hope they win the draft lottery, because if they don't, and they end up with a less than stellar prospect, they'll probably still get a good prospect, but they need a lot. Everything is wrong with Detroit. Everything is wrong with them. They just got a new GM. They got Steve Yzerman, who was a legend for them and was obviously the GM in Tampa, and he was able to turn that team into a powerhouse. So the expectation now is he can do that for his hometown team, his alumni team, the team he made his name with as a player. But yeah, that's a lot of background about Detroit's situation. But all in all, Greiss gives up a really, really weak goal for the first one, but then plays fine after that. I'm still a little bit nervous about him, because the first goal he gives up, inexcusable. Like, it just looks like he forgot where he was for a second, and our goalie scared me a little bit this week with that. Komarov gets his first goal. It was basically an empty netter. It took the goalie being out of the net and the puck falling in front of the middle of the ice with an empty net for him to score. But he got a star of the game, so yep. Yeah, that's this week in Islanders stuff. We're going to talk about the 3 stars of the week in the Sun Bin now. Oh, should have been 1A. All right, the 3 stars of the week. Pretty easy this week, honestly, for me. Eberle had 2 different 2-point games. Really important to see him break out again. Nelson has continued to roll along goal scoring wise, so he's not at all the issue offensively. And Barzal, a little bit of just his playmaking has been, honestly no different than any other week. But big goal against Boston. He's got 17 on the year. He's on pace for like over 30, which is really big for his development, because last year it was mostly assists, but it's really big to see him now be a bit of a goal scorer, partially because he has to, because nobody else on this team could score other than, Nelson and Eberle.
Other than the 2 other people on the list.
You'll notice nobody's in the sin bin. Really, really, really difficult to single out somebody this week that didn't play well. Actually, while I have you, I have to give Michael Dal-Colle some credit. I think Michael Dal-Colle might have played definitely his best game of the season against Detroit. And I know that's partial credit, because that's playing against me. But I don't know, he just he gets an assist in the game, first of all, on the Bailey goal. But he just, for the first time in his career, he was galloping throughout his own zone. He looked confident on the puck. He wasn't looking to just dump and chase. He was getting zone entries. I thought that was just something I wanted to point out, that Dal-Colle did really well, and I really want to see him take this initiative not just against the worst team in the league, and also try to, because we need it. We need some scoring. We need as much scoring as possible. So if we could see Michael Dal-Cole start to create some offense, oh God, please, that'd be great. But yes, sin bin wise, I'm actually not going to give anybody the sin bin this week. I mean, you could just probably say the whole team gets the sin bin for the Ranger game, but the other 2 games, they played fine, and I don't want to single out. I don't want to just arbitrarily single somebody out for if they didn't really do anything wrong. So I would just give the whole team the sin bin for the Ranger game and move on. So that's this week in Islanders hockey, and actually we're filming this just as the puck is dropping for the second tilt of Islanders Rangers at the Coliseum. For the first time since 2015, the Islanders and Rangers at the Coliseum. And hopefully they get it going tonight, because they got to start winning against some mid-level teams like the Rangers. So yeah, that's the video. Goodbye. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, you know the thing. All right, see ya.